Ноль.
Ноль. Есть ход ракет.
Принял. Третий старт.
Есть старт!
The Russian Navy has just launched one of the largest and most aggressive military exercises in recent history, mobilizing hundreds of warships, strategic bombers, and nuclear-powered submarines across multiple oceans. But what is the true purpose of this show of force? In this exclusive analysis, we break down every critical angle of this global power move by Russia. Prepare to be stunned as we uncover the strategic intent behind the maneuvers. In a bold and unsettling move, the Russian Federation has launched a massive, multi-theater naval operation involving more than 200 warships, dozens of long-range aircraft, and a fleet of nuclear-powered submarines.
Ноль. Есть ход ракет.
Taking place simultaneously across the Pacific Ocean, Arctic waters, Baltic Sea, and the Barents region. The scale and sophistication of this exercise are raising serious alarms, not just in NATO capitals, but around the world. This is not an ordinary drill. This is a strategic show of force, and its timing is anything but accidental. With the Ukraine war dragging on, NATO forces increasingly active near Russian borders, and global supply chains under pressure, this operation sends a message that's both unmistakable and chilling. Russia is preparing for the possibility of total war. At the heart of this exercise is a decision that has left Western analysts stunned. Russia has publicly deployed several of its nuclear-powered submarines, including Borei-class and Oscar II-class vessels. These submarines are armed with intercontinental ballistic missiles and long-range nuclear-capable cruise missiles. They are the crown jewels of Russian second strike capability, designed to survive a nuclear attack and retaliate with devastating force. So why deploy them now in a highly visible exercise? One answer is deterrence. Moscow may be warning the West. We are watching, we are ready, and we can strike back. But there's another, more disturbing possibility, that Russia is simulating a first strike scenario under the cover of a drill. Military drills of this size often serve two purposes: to test internal capabilities and to signal external threats. But the complexity of this exercise, integrating submarines, surface fleets, hypersonic missiles, electronic warfare, and even strategic bombers, suggests Russia is preparing for a rapid multi-domain offensive, not just homeland defense. The Russian Ministry of Defense has stated that the goal of the drill is to enhance coordination across naval forces during simulated high-threat engagements. But if that's true, the scale seems excessive. This looks more like a combat rehearsal than a readiness check. One particularly worrying element is the simulated use of the Zircon hypersonic missile, which can travel at Mach 9 and strike targets with extreme precision. Zircons were launched from both ships and submarines during the drill, suggesting that Russia is preparing to deploy them not only as a tactical deterrent, but as a first strike weapon system in a maritime confrontation. This raises a key question. What happens if a single Zircon, launched in error during the drill, crosses into NATO airspace or hits a Western surveillance asset? In such a highly charged environment, misinterpretation could escalate in minutes. Equally concerning is the geography. Much of the activity is focused on the Arctic and Northern Atlantic, where NATO's early warning systems are thinnest. This suggests that Russia is testing not only its offensive capabilities, but how quickly NATO can detect and respond. So far, the answer appears to be not fast enough. The inclusion of Russia's Northern Fleet, its most advanced and nuclear-ready naval command, adds yet another layer of urgency. These forces are not used for routine exercises. They are activated when strategic-level decisions are in play. If Russia were truly preparing for war, these are exactly the forces it would mobilize. One might ask, is this just about Ukraine? Or something much larger? The truth is, this goes beyond the Donbass. This is about global power projection. The Russian Navy is signaling that it can challenge NATO, not just in Eastern Europe, but in the North Atlantic, Pacific, and even near American coastlines, thanks to its stealth-capable nuclear subs. Perhaps the most disturbing possibility is this: could Russia be planning a sudden strike under the cover of these drills? Historically, Russia, and the Soviet Union before it, has used exercises as cover for real operations. The 2014 annexation of Crimea began during a large-scale military drill. The West should not assume this is different. Meanwhile, NATO and US surveillance aircraft have ramped up activity in response. RC-135 Rivet Joint Aircraft, P-8 Poseidons, and AWACS platforms have been spotted flying near Russian formations. But will watching be enough if Russia decides to move? The speed and coordination shown in this drill suggests that Moscow may be rehearsing how to overwhelm NATO's early warning systems in a first-wave strike. The Western response has been measured but increasingly tense. NATO commanders have confirmed that rapid reaction naval groups in the North Sea and Mediterranean have been placed on alert. Submarines have been repositioned. But could NATO respond quickly enough if these drills go live? What's perhaps most shocking is the lack of transparency. Unlike NATO exercises, which are usually announced well in advance and monitored through open channels, Russia's operations began with little warning and involved multiple overlapping phases: air, sea, undersea, and cyber, making them almost impossible to track in real time. And then there's the Arctic. With sea ice melting, new naval corridors are opening. Russia has rapidly militarized this region, building new airstrips, missile bases, and radar stations. This drill sends a clear message: Russia intends to dominate the Arctic militarily before the West fully wakes up to its strategic value. Could the Arctic become the new flashpoint in a global conflict? Absolutely. And this drill may be the first indication of how that war would be fought: stealth, surprise, and overwhelming force at sea. Also worth noting is the timing of China's concurrent naval activities. Chinese warships have been spotted near Japan, the Taiwan Strait, and even Alaska, coinciding with Russian drills. This may not be accidental. We could be witnessing the early stages of a coordinated Eurasian maritime front, reshaping the balance of power from the Pacific to the Arctic. This begs a deeper question. Could this exercise be a cover for a first strike capability test? The drill's structure, rapid fleet mobilization, use of hypersonic and long-range cruise missiles, and electronic warfare jamming mirrors many aspects of a first strike scenario. And that, according to Western planners, is what makes the operation uniquely concerning. The response from the United States Navy and NATO has been swift, though restrained. Surveillance flights over the Barents Sea and North Atlantic have increased. Carrier strike groups have been repositioned, and NATO's standing naval forces have been placed on heightened alert. While the response remains defensive, it reflects growing unease about Russia's true intentions. NATO officials are particularly concerned about the lack of transparency in Russia's command behavior. Portions of the exercise were not announced in advance. Some elements transitioned from a peacetime stance to combat-ready configurations without external notification, blurring the line between a drill and a real operation. This raises an even more pressing issue. Are we witnessing the early stages of a global naval confrontation? While we are not yet at open conflict, the patterns emerging: multi-theater deployments, increased submarine shadowing, and high-tempo naval movements strongly suggest that strategic posturing is escalating on both sides. For now, the situation remains contained, but the risk of miscalculation grows with every vessel, aircraft, and submarine deployed into contested waters. What if a Russian sub gets too close to a US carrier group? What if a live fire drill is mistaken for a hostile strike? The margin for error is razor thin. And in the fog of maritime operations, accidents can trigger real conflict. The Russian Navy appears to be testing more than weapons. It's testing response time, political will, and psychological thresholds. By simulating rapid escalation and multi-domain combat, it forces adversaries to question their own preparedness, their alliance structures, and their rules of engagement.
So what is the West to make of all this? Is this a signal, a bluff, or a deadly rehearsal? The answer may lie in how confident Russia feels about NATO's unity, and how fast it believes it can act before a counter-response is possible. At its core, this drill is more than military. It's strategic theater and the audience is global. It's meant to sow doubt, test Western nerves, and assert dominance in an increasingly unstable world. To conclude, what Russia has executed is far more than a drill. It's a stress test of global reaction time, military cohesion, and maritime dominance. And it leaves NATO and its allies with a sobering set of conclusions. The question is no longer if Russia is preparing for large-scale conflict, but when, where, and how fast it might choose to act if conditions escalate. The sea, once viewed as a buffer between powers, is now a battlefield in waiting. And this operation was the rehearsal.
This video is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in this content are based on open source intelligence, public reporting, and expert analysis. They do not reflect the official stance of any government, military organization, or institution. We do not promote violence, armed conflict, or political agendas of any kind. All scenarios, assessments, and commentary are speculative and for audience insight only. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for sensitive or conflict-related topics.